statement. There were a bunch of people who spoke. There was a sister of the victim. There was an aunt and his mother. And so just the stuff they said, that was obviously very emotional. They were crying. People on their side of the courtroom were crying. Wow. A lot of them said stuff about forgiveness and to Taxstone about, forgiveness. I need to forgive you. But obviously they still talked about needing closure. And, talked about how they wished that Ronald McFadder was still there. They talked about him as a protector, right? As someone who, would have given his life for anyone, not just Troy Ave. There was his aunt actually gave a very emotional speech, his Aunt Michelle, who said that Tax actually used to hang out with her brother, a guy she said was named Treetop. So, she knew of Taxstone. She said she had seen him when they were younger, hanging out with her brother. She said, "You took away my heart. You took away my family. I forgive you, but I'll never forget what you've done." And then at the end, she said, "God bless you. I hope you don't burn in hell."
Wow.
And that was just a very crazy, moment when she said that, right? The whole court, both sides were just wild. His mother spoke last. She was obviously extremely emotional. It was two sisters, his aunt and his mother. And she brought up, she said that her son's character was, she said, quote, trampled on during the trial. She didn't like some of the stuff that Taxstone's side was sort of trying to get across about her son and his history and maybe what was going on that night. AJ, obviously you were there for the whole trial. Some of the stuff they were saying and implying, right, about him. And so she objected to that strenuously. She said that right before he got killed, there had been some kind of incident where he protected a woman who was being beaten by her boyfriend near the Brooklyn Bridge or something. She just really said, he was someone who protected people and did heroic things. And she, interestingly, she said at the very end, she used the words, "My son was set up." And she said to Taxstone, "I forgive you. I forgive Troy and anyone who was involved." So the mother obviously has a lot of feelings about everyone who was there that night and the violence that took place. I, tried to talk to her afterwards. She understandably wasn't in a mood to talk, so I didn't get to really clarify what she meant by that. But, I think that, what she meant by Troy being involved or her son being set up, but she obviously is very emotional and I think holds everyone who was there at least somewhat responsible.
Right.
So yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Can I ask something?
Of course.
While this is all happening, do you notice Tax's expression? What is Montgomery's expression? I don't know, sure if Montgomery was even there, but
Montgomery was there. Kenneth Montgomery, Tax's primary attorney, was there. There was another attorney as well, whose name I didn't catch on Tax's side. They were largely, I didn't see much of a reaction until towards the end. There was some stuff towards the end that got, when they started talking, the prosecution started talking about stuff on Tax's podcast and some of his tweets and things, that got Taxstone visibly upset. And when they started talking about, the witness tampering stuff that came up during the trial, even at the end, Kenneth Montgomery strenuously objected to that. So basically, Kenneth lost a important legal argument. Basically, he was saying, look, there are different counts of assault here. There are 4 victims, but let's count this all as one incident, right? I think when the judge is thinking about this, he should think of this as one incident. And the prosecution was saying, no, look, for each count of assault, for each shot, basically each of those can be seen as a separate incident. And the sentences should run consecutively, one after the other, rather than concurrently, sort of having one sentence count sort of for all of them. So the judge was very clear that he saw each of these shots, each of these assaults as separate incidents, which kind of gave you a hint that he was maybe going to give a major sentence. Okay. And so then it was kind of time for the prosecution to speak and Tax and Kenneth each to sort of say their piece, right? And the prosecutor, Keaton, she kept saying this is senseless violence, right? This is the epitome of senseless violence. And she brought up Tax's past convictions in some detail. I think you can know why, obviously trying to set him up as a certain type of person. Then, in probably the most contentious part that actually drew some outcries from Taxstone supporters, she started bringing up stuff he said on the podcast. And tweets he made, stuff about like F the police, stuff about how like I slap bitches, and how he made sort of obliquely threatening tweets about like forgive your enemies but first get even. Wow. How he made statements about shooting, how you should shoot first, statements about like guns and drugs and prostitution. And her reason for bringing this up, she said it doesn't matter if any of these were true. She said basically, look, Taxstone's side is saying he's such a good guy, he's such a positive influence on the community, he had all this positive stuff in his podcast that was influential to like, black men and other people. And like, he was a positive guy, right? This was something that Tax's side had raised in basically their documents they submitted before sentencing. Mm-hmm. Right. And so her argument is, okay, yeah, he said some positive stuff on his podcast, but he said a lot of negative stuff too. So like, let's not take this, he was a positive influence stuff too seriously. Her exact words were, he may denounce violence occasionally, but he also glamorizes it. So that was why she brought up all this stuff about like his podcast and his tweets, which, like I said, that really raised the ire of some of the people in the courtroom. They were audibly like exclaiming about that.